Okay. Um, Good morning. My name is Kalinoe, and I'm from Pacific Province in Papua New Guinea. I'm also a PhD student at James Cook University in Cairns, Australia. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the Australian Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples um, as the first inhabitants of this country and pay my respects to the traditional owners of the lands on which I'm zooming in from today, the Gimoy, Yidinji, Yirikanji, and Djapukai as the traditional custodians. I pay my respects to the elders, both past, present, and emerging. In recent times, there has been a growing movement to decolonize museums, driven by calls from developing nations, urging European museums to repatriate cultural objects acquired during colonial occupations. The display of colonial collections has been criticized for perpetuating the legacy of colonization. In many cases, the cultural artifacts within these collections were obtained through unjust means, often forcibly taken, stolen, and without the consent of local communities. These items were often collected by missionaries, government administrators, and art dealers. For many Indigenous nations whose items were taken during colonial rule, repatriation symbolizes self-determination, cultural sensitivity, and social justice. Repatriation debates shed light on the power dynamic between First World and developing nations. The significance of repatriation claims extends beyond the objects themselves. They also reflect the effort to rectify past injustices committed against Indigenous peoples. However, it's important to acknowledge that cultural objects may have held different meanings before and after they entered museums. By preserving cultural objects, museums can serve as a platform for cross-cultural dialogue, allowing source communities an opportunity to engage with these institutions works to empower both parties. Repatriation and community partnerships also align with the principles of cultural rights as human rights. This presentation is based on my paper, Decolonizing Tropical Collections, Cultural Material from Papua New Guinea in Museums. My research focuses on colonial collecting of cultural material from PNG and aims to present issues that must be considered before the work of decolonization can begin. As part of my doctoral fieldwork, I conducted ethnographic interviews by speaking to members of the PNG diaspora in Australia. These interviews were instrumental in gathering their perspectives on Papua New Guinean cultural material and their present-day interactions with museums. My PhD project, PNG Heritage in the Archives, a legal anthropology of cultural property, investigates cultural heritage issues around PNG collections when they are held in public institutions such as museums, archives, and libraries. I'm using the Bragg collection at James Cook University as a case study. The Bragg collection contains around 300 interview transcripts from SIPC elders in PNG from the 1960s. My research aims to answer whether the knowledge in these interviews is secret sacred, and if so, what are the intentions of the source community, who should have access, or whether it should be repatriated. My PhD research looks at issues around repatriation, gender, access, and ownership rights. So far, I've interviewed members of the PNG diaspora in Australia, and I've spoken to people that have worked with PNG collections and First Nations collections. The next part of my fieldwork will be in PNG, carrying out ethnographic interviews in Port Moresby with people that work in these relevant public institutions, and also from a community from Pacific Province, where some of the interviews from the Bragg collection are from. PNG endured over a century of colonial rule under various world powers. Throughout this colonial era, numerous cultural objects were taken from Papua and New Guinea by government administrators, missionaries, and art dealers. Despite the presence of cultural property legislation since 1913 in Papua and 1922 in New Guinea that was designed to safeguard cultural property, a significant number of objects were still collected and brought to museums overseas. The removal, destruction, and prohibition of cultural artifacts and practices by early church missions has played a role in the loss of traditional cultural objects and practices in PNG. This point was also raised by my participants. This was articulated by a Sipik woman that I spoke to. She commented, the church has a lot to answer for in terms of discouraging the appreciation and acceptance of cultural objects because they were comparing that to their Western concept of gods and civilizations. They did not appreciate that those things come with people's identity, connection to land, and connection with each other. As PNG embarked on its early journey as a nation, the preservation of cultural objects was seen as crucial for defining Papua New Guinean identity. The establishment of a national museum with a national collection played a pivotal role in asserting a sovereign identity for newly independent states. Consequently, the matter of restitution and repatriation of cultural material gained significant prominence in the lead up to and following independence. Through my interviews with the PNG diaspora, I found that nearly all of my participants experienced a profound sense of pride and connection when they encountered PNG cultural objects, whether these items were specific to their own regions or not. Cultural objects evoke a range of emotions, thoughts, feelings, and meanings and stories among Papua New Guineans. However, it's worth noting that many of these participants were not regular museum visitors themselves. Some participants strongly identified with the cultural objects from their own respective regions. Moreover, there was a prevalent concern raised regarding the loss of language and knowledge, emphasizing the need for museums to play a role in language and knowledge preservation. Views on repatriation were diverse. A large number questioned how museums acquired PNG cultural items, while some participants stated that repatriation of PNG cultural items must take place unconditionally. However, a common thread was the consensus that repatriation is warranted when cultural material has been acquired through unjust means. Additionally, there were concerns expressed about the importance of museums conducting provenance research and maintaining community partnerships to ensure that the cultural protocols of source communities are respected. Decolonization work must begin with establishing community partnerships, fostering engagements, and conducting consultations with museums that house colonial collections. Prioritizing cultural heritage issues is essential before embarking on the work of decolonization. To achieve a complete decolonization of a colonial institution, a comprehensive overhaul of its entire structure and principles is necessary. This includes the development of Indigenous standards, which in this context adhere to the cultural protocols of relevant Papua New Guinean source communities. Museums should undergo a transformation by embracing Indigenous epistemologies, creating pathways for decolonized museum practices. The intricacies of law, control, and circulation concerning cultural heritage objects and traditional knowledge are varied and can differ significantly among Indigenous groups. As such, consulting both source communities and the diaspora is crucial to define and determine access rights and protocols. This approach ensures that cultural material is safeguarded in a manner that respects the intentions and protocols of the relevant source communities. Empowering Indigenous communities by giving them a voice in dismantling the remnants of colonization helps challenge these outdated power structures. Museums across the Western world house collections originating from the colonial era. The way objects from many of these collections are stored, displayed, and managed often exposes the persistence of colonial attitudes, ideas, and practices in the present day. While several museums are starting to formulate strategies for decolonizing their collections, there is still a substantial amount of work to be done. When considering where to start the decolonization process, regarding PNG colonial collections, we firmly believe that it should begin and end with Papua New Guinean vision, values, and voices. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Kula, for this presentation. It was really very interesting and very relevant for many people here as well. Do you have your translation interpretation button on? Do you hear the translations from if we speak in French?
Yes, I should be able to hear.
Great, thank you. Est-ce qu'on a des questions dans la salle, s'il vous plaît? En français ou en anglais? So I will just make a comment about the work that actually I've been doing as part of my master's in Melbourne about Kanak traditional artifacts and how to present them, because some of them are not supposed initially to be seen by women or used by women, for example. And as a woman working on collections, it can, and a European woman working on collection, it can be an issue. When you talked with the elders and the people from the communities, did you had any issues with this kind of, being a gender problem? Like being a woman and perhaps working in museum with objects that are mostly like men's objects?
Yep. Good point. That's also one of the issues that I'm really looking at: sacred material and also knowledge in institutions. And the people that I've spoken to so far, especially a lot of the Papua New Guinean community, they're very strong in their cultural protocols. So in terms of sacred business, that would be probably an issue with me as a woman and also as a Papua New Guinean woman dealing with these items. So that's what the community have said. But a lot of people that I've spoken to that work in museums and in these collections have told me that there is not a set protocol or a guideline regarding sacred protocols for these materials. So yes, so that's really kind of where the other issue is.
So what you say is that people from the diaspora are perhaps have stronger ideas about these guidelines to follow when you conserve or your work with these objects, rather than people from museums and perhaps people in PNG that are already still in PNG?
Yes, so the diaspora has the diaspora has strong views about maintaining and respecting those cultural protocols. I think compared to maybe the people that I've spoken to that work in these institutions, and I'm yet to go to PNG to conduct fieldwork there to also get their perspectives.
We are looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So we have a question.
Bonjour. J'avais une question à poser. Même s'il y a une volonté de ramener un certain héritage culturel en Papouasie-Nouvelle-Guinée, est-ce que certains préféreraient pas l'ignorer? Désolée pour la question.
Thank you. I wasn't able to hear that in English.
Okay, so that's where perhaps the interpretation button at the bottom of the Zoom translation. If you can select a channel or English or French, and then you will have all.
Okay, so I've got that on English, but that the question didn't come through.
Vous pouvez recommencer? Oui.
Even if you in your research you try to Ah, en français, d'accord. Ah, pardon, ok. Ouais, ok. Alors, même si vous tentez de ramener l'héritage de la Papouasie-Nouvelle-Guinée sur le devant de la scène, est-ce que certains ont une volonté quand même de vouloir l'oublier? Ouais, voilà, l'ignorer.
Sorry, I'm still not getting that question.
Okay, so the idea is, even though you're working on Papua New Guinean cultural materials, are there some people who wouldn't want to hear from it, you know, like that wouldn't be really interested? Des gens de la diaspora. The people who would be, you know, like from Papua New Guinea but living in another country, and that wouldn't be really interested anymore with their cultural heritage. Did you get that as well?
No, actually, well, from the community that I've interviewed, I mean, from the PNG diaspora in Australia, they're very interested and very connected and very patriotic with their culture. So I haven't found much disinterest yet. So yeah.
Thank you. And we have another question.
Merci. La question sur... Bon, allez, je vais direct à la question. Vous parlez d'approcher les autochtones, de les faire parler. Quelles sont les démarches que vous faites? Est-ce qu'il y a une ouverture possible? Est-ce qu'ils se livrent facilement pour pouvoir récolter toutes ces informations et puis documenter les collections? Comment ça se passe en fait? Est-ce qu'ils sont libres? Est-ce qu'ils sont ouverts? Est-ce qu'ils ont la légitimité pour pouvoir en parler? Comment vous le faites?
Did you get it or?
No.
No. Okay. So when you are going through the people to have their voices and to have their information about the objects, is it, you know, how do you manage to go, you know, to meet with the people to gather information? Are they open to giving all this information, and are they? Is it easy for you, you know, to go to them, to find them and have all the information? And then is there something else afterwards, like a relationship that is woven with the people afterwards?
Yeah, great question. Thank you. So with the PNG diaspora here in Australia, I'm also Papua New Guinean, and also living here, I also have these, you know, relationships with my community here. So it's been fairly easy for me, and a lot of people have been very open and supportive with my own research and my interviews. And I think with a lot of people that I wasn't familiar with, I've also used the snowballing technique, where they've kind of referred me to other people that would be helpful with my own research. And in terms of relationships, yes, I can say that I think after speaking to people, to community in PNG, I've kind of been able to foster a new relationship with them. And there is that type of, I think that type of respect. And also now that they're aware of my own research, they've been very supportive. Or if there's anything that comes up, or if there's anyone that they think would be of value to my research, they tend to point people out to me in the right direction, or connect me with people. So